The president should immediately declare a national security and public health emergency. In my view, Dana, this is chemical warfare from China.
You have this poison being dumped in our country, and our communities are suffering. Kids are dropping dead every day of the week. Parents of good kids are going up to their bedrooms, finding their kids passed out dead.
Stop the death! Stop the death! Stop the death!
I mean, this is a crisis that we've never seen before. So we need a greater sense of urgency. There's a lethal partnership between the Chinese and the Mexican cartels, and that's really alarming to America's national security. There was a good story this week on Fox regarding the billions of dollars that the Chinese are using to purchase real estate and land in America. The one thing the public doesn't understand is that they're picking up millions of dollars every day of cash, of drug proceeds all throughout America, and it's coming from these cartels distributing the poisonous fentanyl in our country that's killing our kids. And then they're buying property in America. It's insanity. It's really scary, and it's a national security threat like we haven't seen.
Threat America faces from China taking a sinister new turn as Chinese investors are reportedly behind hundreds of illegal marijuana cultivation sites right here in the U.S. So, Derek, you were one of the very first people to talk about this connection, and it was a real mind opener for me, between the cartels and the Chinese, and not just the Chinese mafia, but the Chinese government, the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party.
I've been talking this 6 years now.
Yes.
But you have a situation where Chinese criminals are taking total advantage of the weak policies, the open border. Director Wray has warned the country many times that China is the biggest national security threat. So now when you look at the bombing of America with synthetic chemicals like fentanyl, you look at the sourcing of the multi-ton quantities of precursor chemicals, you look at providing them, the cartels, all the money laundering services now, and then you look at the mass amounts of Chinese military-age men coming into our country. What the hell do people think they're coming here for? Now you look at the marijuana grow operations, they're making billions of dollars, they're sending money back to China, they're buying property, buying farmland, they're all over the country, and the government isn't even talking about it. You have all these reporters. It's not just Maine, Rachel, Oklahoma, California, Colorado, all these states that have the legalized pot. But Rachel, here's my opinion, that they're using these chemicals, the high THC in the marijuana now, to poison our supply of marijuana. And I say poison in the sense it's causing brain damage to our kids and people smoking this stuff. There's studies out there about increased psychosis, schizophrenia. So it's another tactic to destabilize America, in my view.
Absolutely. This is not the same pot from maybe the 1950s and 60s and 70s. This has really high THC, and there's a lot of chemicals involved, which is what the Chinese are there for.
Keep in mind, right now, there's Americans that are dying from xylazine. They're rotten from the inside out, and it's because of the chemicals coming from Chinese labs, or the nitazine, edenidazine, isonitazine, more powerful synthetic chemicals. Look at the K2 in spice in 2008, 2012, when I was at the Special Operations Division. Nobody knew what these chemicals were, but they were destroying our kids, our future generation. Look at all the military members that are dying from synthetic drugs and fentanyl, for example. We've had over a 7,000% increase in the last 2 years of Chinese nationals, many military-age men, crossing into our country illegally. How many are in the gotaways, Rachel?
Yes.
We don't know.
Derek, so great to have you on. You've been really prescient on so many of these issues with drugs, cartels, and the China connection.
Number one cause of death for ages 18 to 45 is what, sir?
Fentanyl, right here in America, right in our backyards, coming from the Mexican cartels, chemicals from China. We have a chemical weapon attack against the country.
Stop the death! Stop the death!
Partnerships between the Mexican cartels and China are ultimately going to lead to the morgue. You can even see here, made in China, right? So these are the chemicals. So the Chinese have been doing this a long time. We're providing the chemicals for production of meth.
But now it's the fentanyl precursors. Anything that China can do to destabilize or undermine their adversary is very important to their overall goals. This particular seizure was the largest cash seizure that I'm aware of in the world from a drug case, okay? Importing precursor chemicals from China, providing the Mexican cartels pseudoephedrine, ephedrine, other chemicals. This gives you an indication of how much money is being made just from the chemical business. 207 million. We also have another dilemma with the Chinese, and that is they are starting to dominate the money laundering services business for the cartels. So the money laundering is a little different now. They're picking up millions of dollars. They're transferring the cash to legitimate Chinese business guys. And the Chinese guys are then going on their devices, transferring the money from one Chinese bank account to another bank account. And then the money's being moved. They're buying consumer goods. They're sending money to Mexico, South America. They're sending goods. Very difficult. Plus, with the encryption, everything's encrypted. Encrypted apps, you can't get content. So you're left in the dark. This is a simple little depiction of like how the complexity of the threats are growing and our capabilities are going down, which means the gap is growing between the good guys and the bad guys, which means that we're all at risk.
What nobody's talking about today is the fentanyl that the Sinaloa cartel is pumping into America, killing our kids at unprecedented levels. We haven't seen anything like this in the history of our country.
We're in the worst drug crisis the country's ever seen. The only thing to talk about is the death and destruction of all these citizens of America dying from fentanyl, and parents have to bury their loved ones.
Stop that death! Stop that death!
We're in another phase of the attack. We have now a new class of synthetic opioids called isonitazine, nitazine, edonitazine, pyro on the streets. These are synthetic opioids that are 10 or 20 times more powerful than fentanyl, and they're made in some of these same labs in China.
This is a mass poisoning, killing our kids at record levels. And by the way, Dr. Phil, I'd like to say, it's not a red or a blue issue. It's a red, white, and blue issue, and all Americans should care about the kids that are dying.
Did you know that the military is losing record amounts of young men and women from fentanyl poisoning? Did you know that? Because it's really underreported.
Ongoing effort of the Chinese transnational criminals in the drug crisis that we face today. It's an attack against our country. 2012, we started seeing deaths by fentanyl. We started an operation called Operation Deadly Merchant because we were very concerned that the Mexican cartels, the Dominican traffickers were working with the Chinese transnational criminals, and our kids were dying. So it's a serious national security threat. To support the families against fentanyl and declare fentanyl a weapon of mass destruction. That's how serious this is. Just call it a chemical weapon attack, because that's what it is.
Mexican cartel poison is inundating our communities, and the kids are being deceived, killing kids at record levels. 300 a day. We've never seen this amount of Americans killed from an organization across our border. We need public service announcements every night. Yeah. This is not a red or a blue issue. It's a red, white, and blue issue. All Americans should care about this.
We have poisonous fentanyl coming in from labs in Mexico. This is alarming, and this is news that we've never seen in the history of the country. That's why there's so many deaths in America. We don't just have an opioid addiction crisis anymore. We have massive fentanyl murders and fentanyl poisonings like we've never seen. Judge, I would say this is a chemical weapons attack. China's behind it. The Chinese criminal organizations are working with the cartels, and they're using the cartels to do the dirty business. Fentanyl pills are all over the country. So fentanyl's killing at record levels. This is nothing new. Last November, we had 6 kids dead in Southold, Long Island, Suffolk County, cocaine with fentanyl. The Mexican cartels are working with the Chinese transnational criminals, bringing in mass amounts of fentanyl, making fake pills. There was enough fentanyl seized by the DEA alone to kill everyone in America. The Vice President, the President, they're not even talking about it. No public service announcements, no education to the kids. The parents that I work with throughout America, they're devastated. They didn't even know what fentanyl was. All Americans, all families, all races, all economic backgrounds are impacted. Really should be the focus is the Mexican cartels and the organized crime from China and all the fentanyl and that are coming into America
killing the citizens of this great country.
Drug known as fentanyl. I mean, we've been hearing about this for some time. It's getting worse.
Chinese organized crime and the Mexican cartels have formed an alliance that we've never seen. It's kids that don't know what they're taking.
It's shipped to Mexico and then smuggled into the United States by the cartels.
People are dying at record levels. I mean, poor families and communities around this country are waking up to the horror of their children passed out and dead from overdoses of this poison coming from China and Mexico.
But for the Chinese, they know exactly what they're doing.
Involved in the money laundering now with all the cartel money going back to China.
It's Mexico and China together killing our people.
Poison is made in labs in China. It's being dumped into our country. China, too, working with the Mexican cartels. To move it into the country. That's a dangerous combination. China is dominating in so many aspects of the drug crisis, and nobody in Washington talking about it. It's a tremendous crisis, and it's not just ask the families.
Have a record-breaking, unprecedented crisis with deaths from counterfeit pills and from drugs, and that needs to be talked about.
The picture so people really fully understand.
Fentanyl seized yesterday. That could have killed 57 million people. That's like half the viewers of the Super Bowl. It's kids that don't know what they're taking. You don't wake up. Parents are finding you dead. Congress, wake up, and people have to be held accountable.
Stop the death!